guys, it's Hannah from Simply Sing Studios, and today I have a really exciting video to share with you. We are going to walk you through the entire process of recording an opera audition video, all the way from setting up your camera and microphones through the editing and exporting phase. So stay tuned to learn how to do it. Before we get started, if you've recorded with us before, you've probably seen our setup and you know that it's pretty intense. But don't worry, today we're going to be using equipment that you can purchase online on Amazon and it won't break the bank. We'll give you all of the gear that we're using and show you where to get it. So we know the biggest complaint amongst opera singers is that microphones just don't do a good job of picking up the operatic voice correctly. So we bought a bunch of affordable microphones and tested them and chose a clear winner that we felt captured the voice really, really well. And that is this guy, the Zoom H1 Essential Handy Recorder. This tool is super powerful, it's compact, easy to carry around, and the best part is that they've designed it so you pretty much just turn it on and press record and it will do the rest for you. It has a technology that makes it so it doesn't clip, so it will always get your high notes and you don't even have to set levels. In our setup, we mic the voice and the piano separately. We also tested a bunch of affordable microphones for pianos, and guess what? Our favorite was the Zoom H1 Essential Handy Recorder. So we're gonna be using two of them, one for voice and one for piano. And again, the best part is you just place it, set it, and record. And for our camera, we are going to use a phone. So this is my iPhone 14, no special settings. So let's prep our camera and make sure we've got the best settings for recording. First things first, we are going to take a microfiber cloth and just clean off that back lens. Make sure it's nice and clean. You can wipe off the front too. That way we won't be seeing any smudges in your video. Now we're gonna set our camera settings for the best way to record video. So if you open your settings tab, we're gonna scroll down to camera. And in the top section where it says record video, we're gonna click on that and change it to 4K at 30 frames per second. If your phone doesn't have 4K, you can use the 1080 at 30 frames per second, but since mine does have the 4K capability, we're gonna put it on that setting. Then go back to the previous menu, scroll down to the composition section, and we're gonna toggle the grid setting on. All right, now that we've got our shot framed, let's mic the piano. For this part, you will need your Zoom H1 Essential, some tape, and a small cloth. Most engineers would agree that the best place to mic a piano is from inside the piano. Since this recorder is small, we can certainly accomplish that, but instead of using bulky microphone stands, we are going to create a cradle for the microphone using this duct tape. So if we take a look at the inside of the piano, every piano has this metal structure here called a plate. And on every piano, it should have two ridges kind of close to the right side of the piano if you're standing in the bell. And this is the part that we're going to use. So we're going to take a nice long piece of duct tape to reach across this bit. And then we'll make a second one. All right, next we're going to take our cloth and put it right on top of that duct tape cradle that we just made. We're actually going to put the recorder on top of this cloth. This just helps it in case the recorder moves around a little bit from all of the sound reverberating in here. This cloth will absorb some of that noise and get rid of any rattling. So then we're just going to point the recorder towards the center of the piano, turn it on. All right, now that your piano mic is ready to go, we're going to put this lid back to half stick because it usually sounds better, and then we'll work on the vocal mic. Okay, now that we've got our camera settings ready, let's actually set up our shot. So I've got my phone hooked up to my ring light here, and now we're gonna work on framing. So remember when I told you to turn on the grid settings within the camera? Well, now we need those. So if we actually look at our phone, you'll notice that now there are lines all over the screen making a 3x3 grid. And basically you want the subject of your frame, so in this case the singer, to land on where one of the horizontal and vertical lines intersect. Firstly, we want to make sure that our pianist is in the frame. Say hi, Daniel. And then we can ask him to stand in for where the singer would be so you don't have to run back and forth if you're filming this yourself. So in order to get him on this right crosshairs where the horizontal and vertical lines intersect, I'm gonna have him just take a few steps. There we go. And now he's right on it. And now we've used the rule of thirds to create a nice looking shot without too much hassle. All right, it's time to set up the vocal microphone. I know a lot of you are used to putting one mic at the back of the room, but we're not gonna do that this time. And trust me, it's gonna sound a lot better. So for your vocal mic setup, we are gonna take our second H1 recorder and put it on top of this tripod. Make sure whatever tripod you use has a tilt function because we're gonna tilt it up and angle it towards where we're gonna be. Now the key with setting up the tripod is that you want to get it as high as you can without being in the camera frame. So you may need to take a test video or have your pianist stand behind the camera and tell you when it's in frame. Last thing for the vocal mic, when we turn it on, we want to make sure that it's set to something called mono. It defaults to stereo, which is fine for the piano, but for the voice, we want to press this button here and just switch it to mono. Okay, we are almost ready to record, but just a couple more things before we get started. First of all, now that I'm in position and got the camera set up, I want to make sure that my focal point for the camera is actually just off to the side. It looks a little bit weird if I stare directly into this camera, so you just want to make sure that wherever you're looking, it's just to the right or left of where your camera is. Second, I need to press record on all three devices. So I'm gonna run around and press record on the camera, record on the vocal microphone, and then record on the piano microphone. Ready, set, go. All right, and then last thing, before I start singing, I'm going to clap. This has the same effect as when you see in movies, the big clapper. That's gonna help us sync audio in post. We'll find out what that means later. But for now, all right, now that we have a fabulous take of our aria, let's talk about how to edit it. First, you want to get the video off of your phone. If you're an iPhone to Mac user like me, you can just airdrop it straight to your computer. Next, we need to get the audio off of our Zoom recorder. The first step, we actually want to do something called normalizing the file. Like I said, this recorder has a special setting that allows the audio not to clip when you're editing, so we need to make that happen. We're going to go into the recorder. You're going to press play to bring up your takes. You're going to find the take that you want to export. You're going to select Option, Normalize, Enter, and Execute, and then let the file process. When it's done processing, you're going to turn the recorder back off, and we're going to take out the memory card. Right here on the side, there is a little micro SD card. You'll have to purchase this separately and remember to put it in before you start recording. So for now, we're going to take it out. And if you have an adapter like this one, there's actually a slot to put in a micro SD card, or it should come with a full-size memory card adapter that you can use in a regular memory card slot. So we'll put the micro card into the big adapter, into our other adapter, and then we'll be able to pull the files onto the computer like you would off of a flash drive or hard drive. All right, now for the fun part, we're going to mix the audio. We are going to use a program called Waveform to edit this audio. Waveform is a free program to download, but we found that it has the most similar features to professional programs and gives you a lot of options as far as what you can do with the audio. So when you open it up, we're going to go to New Project. For our sample rate, we're going to leave that at 48 Hertz. We can title our project Aria Mix, and we're in. Okay, you'll notice it defaults to giving you 8 tracks. I'm actually going to go through and delete some of those because we really only need 2. So I'm going to click starting with number 8 and just Command Delete until I have 2 left. Now we're going to import our tracks that we recorded. So I had them saved in this folder, and I'm just going to drag them right in. And it gives us this pop-up. Yes, we want to make a copy and we want to put it at cursor position. Do the next one. Make a copy, cursor position. Okay. So one semi-annoying feature of this program is that it unfortunately defaults to an auto tempo setting, which in short speeds up your recording. So if we press play right now, you'll notice it's crazy fast. So let's fix that. First, we're gonna click on this top track, that's the piano, and then I'm gonna go down to the settings here, loop properties, and I'm gonna uncheck this auto tempo, and then that'll fix it. And we'll do the other one. Click, settings, loop properties, uncheck auto tempo. All right, so those should be set. Next, we need to sync our tracks together because we've got one track with piano and one track with voice that are separate, and we're gonna line them up so that the voice is singing at the right time with the piano accompaniment. So I'm gonna make these a little bit bigger so we can see. Come on. Okay, so this is where our clapping comes into play. So when you clap, it creates a big spike in the audio, and it was at the beginning, so I know that this clap is actually right here. There it is. So now I need to match this spike with this spike right here, because that's our clap in the piano track. So I'm gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna move this one over so that the waveforms line up with one another. One other quick setting you'll need to change in waveform is that right now it's set to what you call snap mode. So it's lining up with these preset bars and beats up here. So we're gonna go down and we're gonna uncheck this magnet. So it's gonna let us line those up together without it automating to some imaginary beat. Let's get it up a little bit more. Cool. Now we already normalized our file, so the audio should be in pretty good shape volume-wise, but if it happens to be too loud, Waveform actually has a setting that allows you to fix that. So you can click on either of your tracks, we'll just do the piano in this case, go back to those settings, and this gain section right here, you can toggle that up or down, and notice it will actually shrink the waveform. I think this one's actually fine, so we're gonna double click and leave that at 0. Now that we've got our tracks imported, they are synced, we're going to start adding some effects. Now when I say effects, don't panic. In this case, we're not going to put on so many effects that the sound is unrecognizable, but let's remember that microphones are not human ears, and we actually have to edit the sound a little bit to get it closer to what it would be like if you were in the room. Sometimes the microphones pick up frequencies that we don't want to hear, so we need to get rid of those, or we can boost certain frequencies, again, to make it sound like as if you were in the room. So let's get started on a little bit of that. First, I'm going to go up to my view, and I'm going to get rid of these files on the side, and I'm going to bring up my mixer. All right, we'll start with the voice first. So I'll go to track 2, I'm going to hit the plus sign under waveform, effects, gonna bring up the 8-band equalizer. So some of these audio specific things, I'm not gonna get too into detail about why we're doing what we're doing. I'm just gonna give you enough details to get started. So there are a few best practices when we're EQing really any instrument. The first one is that we are going to cut out some frequencies that really just sound like noise. So if you notice here along the bottom, we've got the spectrum of human hearing, 0 hertz, 100 hertz, 1000 hertz, 10,000 hertz, and then on this column we have decibels, which is the measurement for loudness. So if I pull up any of these bands, this is when I'm raising frequencies, this is when I'm lowering frequencies in volume. So I'm gonna start with the lowest frequencies here, and I'm gonna change it to something called a high pass filter. So notice we've got this line now. I'm gonna turn up the frequency to about 150 hertz or so. So that's just gonna get rid of any low rumbles or low frequency noise that happened in our recording. You can hear that sometimes, but we don't need it. It's not contributing to the voice in this case. Okay, next we're going to take a little bit of a listen to figure out what else we can make better. All right. Another general rule of thumb is that it's usually more effective to cut out frequencies than to boost a bunch of frequencies. So a lot of the time when you're recording vocals in particular, there are some frequencies in what we call mid-range, so kind of the center of this spectrum here, that are just ugly. So we're gonna try to find some ugly frequencies right now and we're gonna get rid of them. So let's take a listen. And down here I can adjust my cue that's gonna make this band more narrow. Then just moving this around, sweeping for ugly frequencies. There's one. See, it kind of sounds alien-like. We're gonna bring that down. So if there are more of those kind of frequencies, you can go through and find them, but I don't like to do too much on an opera voice recording because again, we want it to sound like the real thing. Next, since my voice sits a little bit warmer, darker in tone, I'm gonna take some, again, low middle frequencies and I'm just gonna give those a little boost. So I'm gonna come over here to my number 2, I'm gonna pull this up, I'm gonna adjust my cue to make that band a little bit more narrow. And one thing you may have to go back and do, since we adjusted that tempo in the very beginning, sometimes it cuts off the end of the recording. It's still there. You just have to drag it out to the end. We'll get that end of the recording back here. And now I'm actually gonna solo my vocal track so I can hear it without the piano for a minute. Sounding pretty good. Let's leave that EQ as it is. And now we'll switch over to the piano. So again, we'll unsolo this, solo the piano, and we'll add that same 8-band EQ. Again, we can already jump and add our high pass filter to filter out any rumbling that happened in there. Now this time I'm going to do what's called some creative EQing. So not only can we use EQ to make things sound better, but you can also use EQ to create a sonic picture. So we know that we want the voice to stand out in this recording and the piano to be in the background. In this case, I can actually cut out some of the higher and middle frequencies that carry through the recording so that it makes the piano sit more in the background. So let's do that. And I can also do a sweep again for those ugly frequencies. You'll notice there's a little bit of bleed between the voice and the piano, but that's okay. Once we put it all back together, you won't notice as much. So now that we've done a little bit of EQing on the piano, we will put this back together and see how it sounds. At this point, I'm noticing the piano's still a little bit loud, so I'm going to go back to my general volume and I'm going to pull it down a little bit more. We're getting there. Next, we're going to add what's called reverb. This is going to give us the effect that we were in a bigger, better room than what we were originally. So again, don't panic that this is a fake effect. We're going to use it gently so again that it gives us the idea that it's closer to the real thing, closer to your voice as if you were sitting in the room. And so we'll go back to our voice first, and we'll go into waveform, effects, and this time we're going to go to plate reverb. Now, reverb, again, is another effect that we could spend days talking about all the proper ways to do it, and you'll notice there are a lot of settings here. I've gone ahead and created a preset that I know will work well for an opera recording. So I'm actually just going to scroll over all of these settings right now, and if you want to take a screenshot or write down what I've done, then you can set yours to be the same. I will say, if you don't like the preset, the ones that I would recommend changing are, first of all, the mix. That's gonna be how much of the effect is actually being put on the track. The size, that's mimicking the size of the room. So the lower it is, the smaller a room it's mimicking, the bigger it is, the bigger room it's mimicking. Last is decay. That is how much time it takes for the reverb or the echo to die off. So those are the three that make the biggest difference. All right, let's see what this sounds like. We're starting to get a little bit of echo in there. Now let's add a little bit of that to the piano as well. Plate reverb, and I'm actually going to use the same preset for this. So again, here are those settings if you want to copy them. You may need to adjust based on the instrument a little bit. For example, reverb is another thing that can make sound sit back in space, can make it sound farther away. So you may want to put a little bit more on the piano so that sits back and that the voice sits forward, if that makes sense. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay, it's starting to sound pretty good. We're actually almost done. A quick note about all of these settings. Nothing of this that I'm showing you is set in stone. You know, you want to make sure that you're using your ears when you're doing this. If you copy the settings that I do and they don't sound good for your voice or the recording that you have, don't use them. Change them, do some research, find out a little bit more about these audio principles, or you can always ask us questions and we'll help you out. It doesn't have to be always the same as what I'm doing. Okay, let's finish up our mix. We're actually done adding effects to the individual tracks, and now we're gonna put a couple effects on this master track over here. So this is gonna affect both tracks equally and also the sum of both tracks together. So let's add plus, and we are going to add one called a compressor. Again, don't panic about the use of compression in this. It's something that's used more frequently in contemporary and pop music to reduce the dynamic range of the recording. So it makes the soft sounds louder and the loud sounds softer. This can be detrimental to classical recordings if you use too much of it, but we are only going to use just the smallest bit to make the levels more even. So when you put it with your video, we can hear everything really well. So once again, I've actually made a preset that I think works well for opera. I'm gonna scroll over the individual knobs again so you can at least start here. And if you need to adjust something, you can adjust this first knob here, which is the threshold. Turning it to the left will make the effect more aggressive. Turning it to the right will make the effect less aggressive. Or you might adjust the attack. That's how quickly it starts to jump on the sound and start adjusting the volume. Okay, so now we can see how that sounds. just going to even it out a little bit more. And then one last effect that we want to add is another one on the master, and that is a limiter. That again, when used too much, can be detrimental to a classical recording, but we're just going to use it again in a very small dose so that it evens out the volume of our recording, and you can hear all the lows, you can hear the highs, and they don't get distorted or crazy. So I've got another preset for this. You want to see the numbers here, so you have somewhere to start. And we'll see what that sounds like. So you'll notice that it did bring up this softer part in the beginning quite a bit, which is really helpful once you put it back with the video. If you need to adjust this one, you can adjust this first knob, the gain, that is the overall volume that we are limiting, adjusting, bringing up, etc. Okay, the last thing you need to do on this master track is, for whatever reason, waveform defaults the master volume to about -3 decibels. We actually want that to be at 0 decibels. So we're just going to double click that and it's going to go back to 0. That's going to give us a better output volume to add to our video later. So now we're going to save that, and we have our mix done. Okay, that's it for the mix. Now it's time to export and resync it with the video. Okay, to export, we're going to click the arrow over here, go to File, Render to a file. You actually don't have to change anything on this screen, and you click Render. So this is going to be what we will next import into iMovie to add it back into the video. All right, so now it's time to sync our mixed audio back with our video. I've got iMovie open, I've got my video imported, and I've got my mixed audio here. So first, we're going to import the mixed audio into the track. And then we're going to use that clap at the beginning to sync the new mixed audio with the original camera audio. So I think this is my clap here. Just to check, we can turn down the camera audio. Yep, there it is. All right. So again, we're looking for that first little spike in the waveform to help us line it up. And to see this a little better, we can detach the audio from the video. So we'll trim that and sync them here. Oh, see, that's a little bit off. You can also turn down the original camera audio and look at your hands clapping and match up with what's happening there. So that's pretty close. And then we'll check to make sure that my mouth matches up with what's happening. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now, once we've got it synced, you can trim out the clap in both the audio and the video. And we'll trim up the end as well to make sure that it's nothing wonky there. Notice this one's a little bit longer. Right. And then lastly, you're just going to add some fades and some transitions to polish up the video. You'll notice I didn't do the whole aria just for this example, but obviously yours would be at the end of your piece. So we're going to click this little knob here and add a little quick fade out, and then we'll put a transition, fade to black at the end. There we go. And then at the beginning, I also like to add a little fade, and we'll just fade in ever so slightly, not to where you're cutting out any of the audio. All right, guys, that's it. It wasn't so bad, was it? Thank you so much for sticking it out this long. I know it was a lot of information, so if you have any questions at all, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. We are going to post the links to all of the equipment and software that we're using, so be sure to check those out. And if it's still too much for you, you can always come record with us in Columbus, Ohio, or send us audio that you've recorded on your own and we'll help you mix it. So we'd love to hear from you if you like this video, and let us know what you think, and happy recording.